you can hear me well, please give your responses on the chat box so that I know that you are understanding. And Dr. Mujib's lecture on hematuria would be on next Wednesday, and I am taking today management of stoma. So before going through, I would like, because the previous lecture it goes on that the lecture it seems like a lecture. So these are clinical tutorials, and we want you guys to participate more rather than we telling you things. So, what is a stoma? How do you define stoma? Any definitions from students? Yes, yes. Any definitions? What is a stoma? Okay. Uh, Basically, stoma is a mouth and opening outside. In GI, we use these particularly for the intestinal, diversion of feculent material from the body to exit the body because of many reasons. There are different reasons for it, but because of many reasons. So basically, stoma is an opening outside the body to exit the stools and excretions. So that is what basically a stoma is. It has been clinically divided according to different types, depending upon the what site of the intestine you have taken out. In broader terms, it for small intestine, uh, uh, if it is ileum, it is ileostomy. If it is colon, then it is colostomy. If it is urinary tract, ureteric stone. Uh, the ostomies. So basically, as I said, that's how they can differentiate or clinically identify or classify the stomas according to the type of intestine that has been taken out. The other important thing is what is the purpose of that diversion, whether it's a temporary diversion or whether it's a permanent diversion. Diversion, your type of stoma would be different, or if it is a permanent diversion, your type of stoma, technique of stoma, or taking it out would be different as well. So you need to know specifically the reason why you are diverting the stomas. So the permanent stomas are usually done when there is a chronic debilitating disease, malignancy, most of the time malignancy, but at times because of ulcerative colitis involving the complete colon, those patients may end up having the permanent end stomas because of some trauma and usually trauma ileostomies are not permanent, but if there is a major injury of the abdominal contents and abdominal bowel, then they may end up having usually the trauma and the stomas due to peritonitis of tuberculosis or ileal perforation or enteric perforation are usually temp. Malignancy are the ones which end up going in a permanent stoma formation. So why do they form in stoma? Feeling percutaneous gastropexy, that is again, these are different regions for decompression. Basically, the main purpose of stomas is decompression and diversion. You want to divert and give rest to the distal bowel to heal up before you reverse pack the stoma, or because there's so much sepsis, the gut is so much dilated, you cannot do an anastomosis, you cannot put the whole bowel inside the abdomen again, then you do a decompression and diversion. And the permanent stomas is a part of the surgery for lower colorectal region, that is APER, because you are closing the anal opening completely. The patient would have a end stoma in the abdomen. So, still any issues still here, students? Because if you respond, then it will be easier for me to know that you are understanding what I'm saying. Okay. Uh, will it be an issue if I go back to the partly screen so that I can open my chat box? Otherwise, I cannot open my chat box. It's easier for me to see your responses with that. So I am going back for software. I will.
अस्सलामुअलैकुम मैम।
जी यस, वालेकुम सलाम।
स्क्रीन चली गई मैम।
जी मैं दोबारा कर रही
जी
हूँ। मैं एक्चुअली चाह रही थी कि मेरे साथ यहाँ चैट बॉक्स खुले, तो फिर अब मेरा ख्याल है मैं छोटी से
जी मैम।
चैट बॉक्स खोल सकूंगी, मुझे स्टूडेंट्स का पता
ठीक
लगेगा,
है
ठीक
मैम।
है ना? यस, दिस इज बेटर। ये वो बड़ी स्क्रीन में मुझे चैट बॉक्स नहीं मिला, स्टूडेंट्स को बड़ी स्क्रीन पे ज्यादा फिर वो नजर आता है, वो अपनी स्क्रीन एडजस्ट कर सकते हैं ना।
जी 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 मैम, वो अपनी स्क्रीन एडजस्ट कर सकते हैं।
ठीक है, तो अपने आप को फुल स्क्रीन कर देंगे तो वो मेरी पूरी कर देंगे, दैट वुड
जी
बी
जी जी।
बेटर ऑप्शन। ओके, so
ओके।
coming back, so that's why you divide your uh, presentation, the different techniques of your stoma. So the principles for the stoma would be, how do you fix that stoma? What are the different techniques? So again, any student and any difference that comes up with it, because it's different for how do you anchor the large bowel or how do you anchor the small bowel.
मैम स्क्रीन शेयर नहीं होगी।
स्क्रीन शेयर नहीं हुई भी, स्क्रीन
नहीं मैम।
शेयर हुई नहीं है, अब हो गई।
जी 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 मैम, अब हो गई।
अच्छा, ठीक है, ठीक।
हाँ,
So what are the principles of how do you uh, adhere to the stoma, make stomas? Any comments from students? What are the differences when you are making a small bowel stoma or when you are making a large bowel stoma? If you can see here that the loop of the intestine has been taken out and has been everted, and the edges have been anchored to the skin. So when you do this, this makes a pout of that intestine and helps to collect that contents in the bag that you're going to connect to it. This anchoring is more important for the stomas when you are making the small bowel stomas, because the contents are very acidic and the pH values are different. They excoriate skin, so it's important for them not to touch the surrounding skin, surrounding structures, and directly fall into the bag. So these should have a pout there. But if it is a large bowel stoma, that is a colostomy, then it's not necessary, because the more distal it is, then it's usually a flush colostomy, that is at the level of your skin or little slightly above, not more, and not too less, because too less would get the complication of retraction. So it should be such that it's flush to the skin and the contents are usually formed stools, so they fall in easily into the back space. And there is less issue of skin scoriation with feculent, complete formed feculent contents. So that issue is not there with large bowel intestines as such. But for small bowel intestines, you need to make sure that you make a good pouch. Then there are other things that you keep in mind, that you this is an important slide in the manner that what are the complications of stoma. If you know the complications, you more of the complications you can stop them or you can avoid them right during formation of your stoma. Because if you have an idea where and what you are making, where are you are making the stoma, how will you make it, how will you fix it, the complications, keeping in mind, you would know what to avoid there. So the even making the stoma, the first thing is the marking of the site where you want the stoma to be placed in the abdominal wall. This will vary with the intestine that you are using. If it is in general, if it is an ileostomy, then it is usually on the right side. If it is a colostomy, then it is usually on the left side. This may have exceptions because of the length of the bowel, excessive fluid, and that. But generally, the general term and general principle is that ileostomy should be on the right side and your colostomy should be on the left side. One thing. Secondly, you need to mark down your anatomical landmarks. It should be somewhere between the below the umbilicus, at the level of the umbilicus, away from your midline incision and away from bony prominences as well, the interior superior iliac spine, particularly because when you're going to fix the bag, if it is not adequately fixed, it's constantly going to leak and cause problem for the patient. So it is important to mark the site of stoma before you start your surgery, where your site of incision and the distance from incision to the stoma as well. Because if the stoma is too near the incision, then your main incision will get infected. That would be trouble too. If it is very far away and near to your bony prominences, then it will be your bags would not adhere. There will be constant trouble of bag leakage and the skin scoriation and all those troubles with the patient as well. And in the long term, if you have not anchored, because you anchor your stoma when you pout it out, you anchor that serosa to the rectus sheath inside, because if you do not do that, your stoma may sink in and it will retract, uh, or it may cause a long-term peristomal herniation. So all of these things could be avoided at the time you are making this stoma. If you know the complications, you can avoid them while making the stoma. So that's how you prepare your patient. Very importantly, more for elective cases. If you are doing an elective preparation for a stoma, the patient should be psychologically prepped up, should be counseled, because in general, patients have big reservations कि अच्छा मेरा पखाना बाहर कैसे आएगा, मैं पखाने को संभालूंगा कैसे, मैं पब्लिक में कैसे जाऊंगा, मैं नमाज कैसे पढ़ूंगा, मेरी पाकी कैसे होगी. These all these questions will you should address to the patient before you make a stoma. In emergency cases, you may not have all the time to explain that before surgery, but you should explain all of these things after the surgery to the patient, because stomas in general, they do not hinder cleanliness, they do not hinder for all the purposes. You can empty the bag, clean it up, wash it up, apply it, do your wuzu and perform namaz. It does not affect that. There are should some dietary advices with it that patient should follow. Patient should know himself that how to apply the stoma, how to clean the bag. Patient attends both, so that he or she can manage it herself without causing all the other issues. And as I said earlier, that before even making, we do not have those stoma care centers, especially here still now. But I think as surgical stoma care center, but in general, there is a stoma care unit which helps the patient understand how to apply the bag, how to change the bag, how to wash the bag, all the other things with practical purposes, how to avoid the scoriation and how everything, so that you need to the patient should know before the stoma is actually formed. And there would be few issues or variations in different, because if the patient is too skinny, then you do not have enough space where to make a performa. If the patient is too fat, it's difficult to take out intestine out, it keeps on retracting. So in those issues, you need to keep other things in general consideration before you actually make one stoma has got. So you can see this is a stoma, but this is a pediatric patient. So the stoma is in the midline for in the transverse incision because of some congenital issue. So this is just a formational stoma. So in general, as we started earlier, we said that stomas are broadly divided according to your intestine that is being taken out. So if it is large bowel, it is colostomy. If it is small bowel, if it's ileostomy. We will be talking now more of colostomy for a few further slides. So is an artificial opening for the large bowel to collect with an exterior appliance and collect your diverted feculent matter. And as we said earlier, there could be temporary and there could be permanent. So temporary are the usually loop ileostomies. That means you just take out a loop, your posterior wall remains intact, and you just have a distal and a proximal opening there with intact posterior wall, and that the distal wall just works as a distal fistula or mucous fistula, and the proximal one is the functioning one, and then that is the loop colostomy. Usually it's done in the transverse colon on preference, but depends upon the patient preference.
समझ गए मैडम? जी मैम। मैम आप जो है वो दोबारा साउंड डाल। जी मैम। जी मैम। चलिए मैं आपको दोबारा से बताता हूँ आईडी और पासवर्ड। ऐसे मैम स्टूडेंट्स तो फिलहाल यही आ रहे हैं। इसमें हुआ ये है कि किसी ने जो है वो हैक करने की कोशिश की। जी तो हैक करने जी 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 मैम, मुझे किसी ने साइन आउट कर दिया था।
रिपोर्ट कर देंगे। चले मैं इसे अपनी जहाँ से बोलता हूँ। ओके, so let's just start here. Okay, so we are back with the screen, and if you okay, So any
मैम स्क्रीन फुल कर दी।
screen full कर, ठीक है ना, हो गई।
ओके मैम। यस मैम।
Okay. G. So we were there. If let's get back to the one previous slide. So we are talking about the large bowel stomas. Those are called the colostomies. And again, the site of the even taking out the large bowel will depend upon what is your pathology. If you are doing for a descending colon, you want to divert, you make a transverse uh, colostomy. Usually, the colostomies, because they are easier, temporary colostomies are easier to made in transverse plan because they're easier to reverse back again without opening the complete abdomen. You from the stoma site, you take it down, repair it back, and put it back in without taking it down as a permanent the abdominal laparotomy again. But that depends upon the pathology why the stoma was made. If it was made for malignancy, then there are certain protocols that you need to follow, whether it was what stage the patient was in, patient received treatment or not, patient is disease free or not. All those factors will be kept in mind before taking out the uh, reversing it back. But if it's a transverse colon, transverse colostomy, and usually the as I was telling you that if it is the temporary colostomy, then it is usually the loop colostomy. The posterior wall is intact in these patients. Only the interior wall is opened up and everted, and the distal one functions only as a mucus fistula, and the proximal functions as your proximal diversion and divergent stoma. But if it is an end stoma, there are different scenarios that in which if it is already that patient has a very low anal tumor, very high grade anal malignancy, a low colorectal anal tumor, then when the patient is undergoing APER and you are closing down the anal aperture, then you make a diversion of end stoma proximal at least 10 centimeters of free margins of your malignancy and making it there. But if at times in emergency the patient comes with you with a perforated malignancy in colorectal region and you do not know what to do, it's too high, you cannot make an anastomosis, the disease is too advanced, you cannot open up or take out the complete portion. What you do is you divide your bowel. That is, you for distal bowel you clamp it, anastomose it with staplers or hand sutures and put it back inside body. This is kind of an emergency procedure for perforated colorectal malignancies. And the proximal, as much you after removing, if you can remove the tumor, you could resect the tumor and go proximal to it and take it out in stoma, then restage your patient afterwards post surgery, re-evaluate the management and treatment, the radiotherapy and the chemotherapy and all patient once downstage, then you can may plan a Hartmann's procedure to reverse, which was difficult in initial days. Earlier days, Hartmann was taken in more or less kind of a permanent procedure or a very difficult procedure to reverse. But with advancement of the circular staples and the contour staples, it has been a little easier, a little better results of reversing even Hartmann's. If once the patient is completely disease free, we do reverse the Hartmann's procedures as well. Then if the segment that is involved is very far away, you cannot make out a loop and you have to dissect a segment, those stomas would end up having two separate openings. Those are named as double barrel colostomies. So by anatomy, your colostomy could be by a transverse colostomy, it could be in the descending colon or descending colostomy, it could be in the sigmoid colon, sigmoid colostomy. Cecostomy is one word, one term that you might hear, but it's not usually made because involving cecum and taking it just cecostomy is not an option right now. Then you do a right hemi and take out an ileocolic stoma. That is the way it's done. So cecostomy is not for any practical purposes done. For function, either we said for decompressing or for diversion, and by construction, that is the end stoma, a loop stoma, or double barrel stoma. This is a stoma, in the particularly the loop stoma that you can see, and especially that you would see that there is a bridge in between the two uh, loops. So this bridge is more important for a colostomy because you make it in a flushing manner, so it does not sink in till it settles down and secures. You keep that bridge for 10 to 14 days and then remove it, and then also remove these sutures that are applied there. So if you are making a loop ileostomy, this is that posterior wall remains intact, and uh, you are just taking out the segment above. The distance was two apart, and there are two separate loops coming out. There are double barrel ileostomy, and one permanent end to is this end colostomy or single barrel ileostomy. And as I said, okay, what part of colon that you are taking out would depend upon your primary pathology, where it's in the descending colon, in the transverse colon, or in the ascending colon. Ascending colostomies are again depending upon where you are making and why you are making. If it is malignancy, then you do reverse it. But usually, then it's done. A right hemi is done, and then you take an ileal segment and a colon as a double barrel ileocolostomy. Those are made. For most common and most easy to reverse is a loop transverse colostomy that is usually made for diversion and decompression. And if the patient is in obstruction, you cannot do much procedure, then you make that. For descending colon, for end studios, you make a descending colostomy. So if it is there is any distal obstruction, if you are making at times because of low anal anastomosis, if you are performing a low at within 5 centimeters of anal canal, the low colorectal anastomosis, at times you, to protect that anastomosis, you make a defunction of the ileostomy so that the anastomosis gets time to heal, and then you reverse it. But again, with advancement of staplers, this is little done less now, and the primary anastomosis of staples usually sustain well and do not need a defunction. But when it was hand Suman, then it was usually defunction. Or if the patient is complicated, patient is sepsis, you think your patient needs a defunction, and things will settle down, you make a defunction colostomy or an ileostomy, depending upon the site where the tumor is. Uh, the other common pathology that ends up patient having stomas are the IBDs, being ulcerative and Crohn's disease, which is a complication. At times, patient may end up having a stoma and diverticular disease. So, as we said, I have mentioned earlier, the bridge is necessary more in stomas, colostomies, because they are flush. When you make a ileostomy, which that will be discussed in forward slides, there's usually a big pout out, so they do not usually need a bridge. For colostomies, you need a bridge to stabilize them and prevent them from going back in. Okay, this is in Hartmann's procedure. As we said earlier, the distal segment, you close it up and put it back in. Proximally, if you can remove the tumor, you remove the tumor and make the stoma as proximal as possible and take it out. This is more or less taken as an emergency procedure when you cannot perform a definitive surgery, either because of very advanced disease, either because of patient is in severe sepsis, any of the reasons, because you can if you do not have the option of doing an extensive surgery at the time of emergency, patient is presented to you with severe peritonitis or perforated tumor, then you can perform this procedure and plan the reversal after the patient has been restaged, reevaluated, remanaged with chemo-radio, and then you suture it back. So, rectal carcinoma and inoperable rectal colonic carcinoma for your end colostomy are the permanent indication. So, what are the complications of stoma? As if you recall the slide where I discussed how to form a stoma, is important to understand to avoid these complications that will occur eventually. So, the commonest, these basics first in a complication that you should, when once you make a stoma, is the color of the stoma, whether you have taken out with adequate blood supply and mesenteric attachment to that segment, because, or if it is not twisted inside. So whenever you make in stoma, you make sure while making that there is adequate blood supply, the color of your colon and color of your gut is good, it's not dusky, it's not necrose, it's not blood supply compromised, because if your blood supply is compromised, your stoma is going to turn black, and then of course your purpose whole fails and you have to redo the surgery. So this is done while you are making the stoma. Same goes for, as I said, for retraction. If you do not anchor it adequately, or if these your stitches get cut through, the stoma would get back in the abdomen and cause peritonitis and fecal contamination inside your abdomen for the purpose which you wanted to avoid. So this is again a complication that you avoid forming during the formation of the stoma. Then again is important here is that you should also know that stoma can prolapse. By prolapse, I will show you some figures and photographs. What we mean by prolapse, that excessive segment, this happens more in ileostomy. Somehow because of excessive peristalsis or excessive segment being taken pouted out, it comes out more outside. That is also not good. So you want just an adequate amount of the intestine that comes out, and do not want over excess of that. And then there is also, depending upon the primary disease, the fistula formation, stenosis of the orifice. It's lesser, as I said, skin scoriation is less with the colostomies, is more with ileostomies, but again, this can happen. And the other important, very important factor, again, is more with ileostomies, because the electrolyte content and the content is more liquid, and with colostomies is more, patient do not have those trouble at all, more or less, but they should keep in mind their diet, because diet with hard seeds and may hinder them passing, and they can make obstructed very hard, because most of your water gets absorbed in your large intestine. So if it is very hard, it will not be easily passed out from the stoma outside. So patient may have a stomal constipation. You need to evacuate those hard pieces and all that. So keep in mind that in the management of colostomy. Colostomal hernia, as I said, if you do not anchor, they would have the herniation from the side of the sheath, and you need to avoid that as well. Okay, so now we will be coming to the ileostomy. So ileostomy is an opening made between the ileum and the skin for the diversion of the intestinal contents, and as we said earlier, it may be temporary and may be permanent. Ileostomies temporary are usually made with the any in our setup are usually made with uh, the end ileostomies, and as I said, if advanced ulcerative colitis or inflammatory bowel disease or whole familial polyposis, you are completely taking out the colon, then patient would have an end ileostomy. Again, the procedures have advanced. Initially, it was ileostomy. Now they have the formation of the J pouches and all that, that to maintain the continuity of the bowel, being less made, but still the main option is that you make a uh, and ileostomy for these diseases. For temporary ileostomy, patient with enteric perforation, patient with tuberculosis, any ileal perforation which is not cannot be repaired primarily, you take it out. Patient is in severe sepsis, there gross contamination of your abdominal cavity and peritoneal cavity. You take the bowel out, make a stoma, let the everything heal out, and after 6 to 8 weeks, you reverse it back. We will be talking a little about how and when you reverse the uh, stoma. We will talk about that as well. But the temporary, the looped ileostomies are usually made for these reasons, and then you reverse them. So this is the pouch that you can see, and you can appreciate there are two openings. Just by looking at this, you cannot tell what is the proximal and what is distal, but for general terms, because this is the active one. So this is the proximal opening, and this is the distal opening. And this just works as defunction stoma, and you can see the posterior wall intact here. So when you need to reverse it, you do not need to go back again, you can simply separate it from outside, repair the interior wall and put the stoma back in. So that is why that is made, and you can see the bridge here as well in stuff. So different types of stomas that are made uh, in general to show you because of different the pathologies, but usually it's the end, the double barrel, and the loop that you see. These the side to side, and these are not done frequently and not very uh, used. Uh, the complications are the same as we discussed for stoma. So there could be prolapse, there could be retraction, there could be peristomal hernia, there could be necrosis and gangrene of the distal end, there could be stenosis of the ileostomy orifice, skin scoriation more with ileostomy, and you do certain things to avoid that. Then the fluid electrolyte balance, because the contents are liquid in form, they have more enzymes and electrolytes, so patient needs to take care of his diet for that as well. So in general, this is just a overview of the all the complications altogether. What are the different? This is one of the complications here is the patients with stomas have more incidence of forming gallstones and renal stones. So you will find out. You should find out the reason that for me why a patient with stoma has more gallstones and more renal stones. Let me know your answer. Take it as for your homework and let me know why these patients have more gallstones. And we discussed that all these stomas will be there. So any very obvious complication, can anybody comment on it? What is the complication and which you need to avoid? What has happened here? What has happened here? Are you guys allowed to use a chat box? So you can comment on your chat box. Yes, good, very good, excellent, Tehzeeb, and Saif. Yeah, necrosis, basically necrosis, because the blood supply. Let me go back to that slide so I can see. Yes, the blood supply is completely compromised. So this patient would have a redo surgery, should have a redo surgery and reformation of the stoma, because this would not work. This is all dead. This is what complication is this? Those names are written there, but still for your guys to understanding your comments. And this one is retracted. It has sunken back in. When it's sunken back again, it will cause peritoneal contamination, and the purpose of your decompression would not suffice, and there would be sepsis. So you need to avoid this as well. This shows the skin changes and scoriation. This is avoided by using the magnesium sulfate, zinc sulfate ointments to the surrounding skin, appropriate application of the surrounding skin, the appliances, usage of adhesive gels that are given with them so that there is no leakage. All those things should be you try to you avoid these complications. So, as we said earlier, when you are making in stoma, the parameters that you take before positioning in the, it should be away from your any bony prominences, it should be away from your umbilicus, it should be away from any previous incisions, it should be visible when the patient stands, it should be comfortable for the patient to handle it. So all of these things in an elective setting should be discussed before with the patient and marked before on the patient before you make an stoma. The emergency setup, yes, things are not that convenient, but still you need to help the patient understand when you take the consents and all that. So you can see what are all of these. What picture is this? These are different types of different types of Yes, these are different types of stoma appliances, and they different types of stoma appliances are basically because uh, 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 with the different companies there are open bags, there are closed bags, there are single unit bags, there are double unit bags in which you have separate wafer, and you have separate bag there as well. So that is the you should know the different parts, because this is the wafer part, this is the bag, there is a clip separately which we will be showing you in the next slide as well. So just for the learning purposes. Okay, while we are finishing this, you have this feedback link available. Please kindly fill up these feedback links so that you have we improve our lectures as well. Okay, and apart from this, we would have when you are given the site where patient in examination, you at times a patient is already having stoma, you need to do the examination of that stoma. So what things you keep in consideration while doing that? There is inspection the site, the types of surrounding skin, the whether it's a loop stoma, whether it's a flush stoma, all of these should be commented on your in your observation, and you comment upon when you are describing it. And general abdomen, previous scar, and all that should be taken out. The contents and any this is the complete just an overview when you are given as your examination task. Okay, please examine the abdomen. Patient is already a stoma there, so these are things that you comment upon while doing that. Okay, as we talked earlier, these patients should have a dietary advice as well, because uh, uh, both ileostomy and colostomy have a little different dietary advices. Patients with colostomy should avoid constipation because very hard stools would be difficult to come out from these stomas. People with ileostomy should avoid electrolyte imbalance. Their liquid intake should be adequate. Their electrolyte should be adequate. They should avoid taking foods with hard parts or large seeds or with seeds. They should chew their food well, because your intestine is not going to function in a very proper manner. So for good absorption, the if the well chewed food will have a maximum absorption in intestine as much as possible, because these patients may have any metabolic, because more usually most of the absorption of your nutrients is done in the upper ileum. But if by any chance the patient has made a jejunostomy due to some complications, patient would have a severe electrolyte imbalance, and because there is a very high output content, and then the absorption of nutrients would be very deficient as well. So you need to keep those things in consideration, advise them for good dietary advices as well. Okay, so now I'm going to share a link here uh, for your video that you would need to see. Uh, Let me just go back.
Here with registerednursern.com, and in this video I'm going to be doing an in-text review over GI ostomy, specifically colostomy and ileostomy. And as always, in the YouTube description,
मैम साउंड नहीं आ रहा है इसका। हेलो हेलो हेलो
surface of the abdomen. And notice that you have the stoma, and the stoma is setting right on the surface of the abdomen. And in the middle, this is where the stool will be excreted. And always want your stomach to be nice, red like this, shiny look to it, and be normal. So what are some reasons why a person may have
परसों
an
का ये
awesome?
है क्या?
One thing is they may have GI disease like Crohn's, ulcerative colitis, or diverticulosis, or an infection, or cancer like colon or rectal cancer, or maybe an injury or congenital defects like an obstruction. And a colostomy or an ileostomy may be permanent or reversible depending on what's going on with the patient and their treatment. Now, before we dive into our lecture about colostomies, ileostomies, and the nursing care, let's go back to the basics. Let's look at the anatomy and physiology of the GI tract and how food flows through the system. And as I do this, be sure you pay attention to the small intestines, specifically the ileum and where it's located, and the parts of the large intestine, like the colon areas, because this is where your ostomies are going to be located. You need to be familiar with those locations. So, whenever you eat food, digestion starts in the mouth. So you eat food, you chew it up, your saliva's mixing with it, it's breaking down the food a little bit, and then you're going to swallow it. You're going to swallow it down through a tube called the esophagus. And the esophagus is going to use peristalsis to get that food down into your stomach, like a pouch. And in that stomach is gastric acid. And it's going to mix with your food, and it's going to break it down a little bit. It's going to turn into a substance called chyme. And it's going to go through the small intestine. And the small intestines are responsible for absorbing and digesting your food. That is a huge role. So the food's going to enter into the first part of the small intestine called the duodenum. Then it's going to flow down through the jejunum, and then it's going to go through the last part of the small intestine called the ileum. And the ileum is where our ileostomy will be. Then the food will flow into the large intestine, and colon is also called large intestine. It's going to enter in through the cecum, up through the ascending colon, across the transverse colon, down through the descending colon, into the sigmoid colon. And your large intestine, the big wall it does is it absorbs water, and it helps get the food that your body didn't use, the waste, and forms it so you can pass it as stool through the rectum into the anus and then out. So that is how the basic setup of how food will flow through your GI tract. First, let's start out talking about colostomy. Okay, we know that a GI ostomy is where a surgical opening has been created to bring some part of the intestines to the abdominal surface so stool can be excreted rather than through the rectum. Well, a colostomy is a surgical opening that brings the large intestine, the colon, to the surface of the abdomen. Now, there are various locations for a colostomy, so different types. And I would remember these types because you need to know them for when you're assessing a patient with a colostomy. You see it on the right side, left side, mid-abdominal. You need to know what type of colostomy that is and what type of stool you would be expecting from that colostomy, because depending on its location, there's going to be different varieties of stool, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So let's talk about the types. Okay, to help you remember the different types, remember this mnemonic. That or that, a colostomy. D is for descending. So when you have a descending colostomy, it will be located in the left upper abdomen. So we have our descending colon, and you could expect one about right here. Then we have our ascending, and you could expect an ascending colostomy to be on the right area of the abdomen. So over here on the right side where the ascending colon is, you would expect one about right here. Then we have a transverse colostomy, and you will expect that about mid-abdominal. So you have your transverse colon. So about right here is where you would expect that. And then we have a sigmoid colostomy. And this can be found in the left lower area of the abdomen. So we have our sigmoid colon right here, so about right there. It would be a little bit lower than your descending colon, so you can expect that right there. Now let me discuss this real fast with you. It's called a double-barrel ostomy, and it's part of the transverse colon, so you would find one about up in this region, and it is a creation of two stomas. So let me show you what one looks like. As you can see here, we have two stomas, and the stomas are nice and red, they're moist, they're shiny. That's how we want them to look. And I would remember this part. Okay, we have the proximal stoma, and we have the distal stoma. And the proximal stoma is connected to the GI tract, so it's functional, and it's going to be draining stool. So that's what we will expect out of here. But over here with our distal, it's connected to the rectum, and it's not functional. Sometimes it's referred to as a mucus fistula. So what you will expect to come out of here would be mucus. So if you're ever asked on a test, patient has a double-barrel ostomy, what do you expect? Proximal and the distal will drain. You'll know that the proximal drains stool and the distal will drain mucus. So that's what your classic double-barrel ostomy is. Now let's talk about an ileostomy. Okay, an ileostomy is a surgical opening that has been created to bring the small intestine, specifically the ileum, to the surface of the abdomen so stool can be excreted. And an ileostomy is going to be located in the right lower quadrant. So you can expect one to be about right here on the abdomen. Now let's look at the pre-op and the post-op nursing care that you will be providing to that patient who may be getting an ostomy. Okay, so the pre-op. Okay, what are you going to do as the nurse? Number one, your role is educating. You sit down with that patient. You want to talk to them about how the ostomy is going to look. You don't want them, first time they see an ostomy stoma is right after surgery. It'll really scare them. So they need to be familiar with what's going to happen, where it's going to be located at on the abdomen. Diet, the diet they need to follow, which we can cover in the post-op part of this lecture a little bit later, and the pouching system, how it's going to work with placing the pouch on, how to do that. Because at first it can be really confusing and overwhelming for the patient, so introduce them to that a little bit. The pre-op part, post-op part comes when they actually have to start participating and taking over care for that. It won't be so overwhelming. And I'm going to be making a video on how to place an ostomy pouch and how to provide care. So be sure to check out that video. Okay, another thing, the MD may order oral antibiotics. Why? Because in your gut are all these bacteria that live there. But when you go in and you do surgery and you mess around with those, you can cause some problems. So the antibiotics will help decrease the bacteria in the colon and decrease the chances of post-op infection. And also the physician may order the patient about 2 to 3 days prior to surgery to be on a soft or semi-liquid diet. Also may order cleansing solutions to cleanse the colon, get it all cleaned out before they go in there and do surgery. Don't want any residue of food in there. And they also may be on a clear liquid diet 24 hours before and then nothing by mouth. And a lot of times patients are admitted to the hospital because they're going to be on these cleansing solutions, use diarrhea, and they're at risk for electrolyte imbalance and dehydration. So they will probably be on IV solution to help balance that out. Now let's look at the post-op care. Okay, so your patient's back, they've had their ostomy placement. What is your role as the nurse? Okay, you're going to monitor their electrolytes. You're going to monitor them for signs of dehydration. So you're going to be looking at that urinary output, making sure that it's stable, it's good, and you're tolerating everything. Also, big thing what you want to do is you want to monitor that site, specifically that stoma. And what you're looking at is how does the stoma look? So how should, after surgery, the stoma is going to be large and swollen. You need to let the patient know that as months go by, the stoma will shrink down to normal size. But at first, it's okay to be large and swollen. Now, the stoma should always look pink or red, like how I showed you in that example of red. and be moist and shiny, like the inside of your cheek, of your mouth. Abnormal. I would remember this. Test questions like that give you a scenario about how a stoma may look and what it shouldn't look like. So if the stoma appears to be black or dark red, that could indicate, well, it indicates compromised circulation to that stoma. Not good. You need to contact the doctor immediately. And let's look at a stoma that has compromised circulation versus a stoma that is nice and healthy. And I want you to see the difference. Over here we have an ostomy. This does not look good. This has compromised circulation. So if you ever see it's turning black or dark red, not good at all compared to how you want it to look. So just looking at the difference, you can really tell that something's not right over here compared to over here. Also, you want to make sure the stoma does not look light pink. That could indicate a low hemoglobin on hematocrit level. So anytime those types of stomas present, you want to notify the doctor. Okay, so what kind of drainage do you expect your ostomy, depending on ileostomy or colostomy, to have after surgery? Okay, an ileostomy, remember, it's going to be located in that right lower quadrant. It's going to drain dark green stool. And as the patient, whenever they start to eat and tolerate food, they'll start out slow, clear stool, and that stool will start to turn like a yellowish color. Now, the colostomy, at first it may be like a mucousy, mucoid type drainage. And as time goes by, it's normal for it not to really produce anything until about day 2. But at first it's probably going to be liquid. Then, depending on where that colostomy is located, it will turn into the form that it's supposed to look like, which we'll cover here in a second. And over the side, you could expect a petroleum gauze to keep the site nice and moist. Also, later on, there may be a sterile dry dressing until you get the pouching system in place to start draining the stool. So remember, if a test question asks you, dressing fell off, what are you going to reapply, or what type of dressing you expect the patient to come back from surgery? Gauze dressing. Now let's look at the types of stool that you should expect after the post-op period has passed a little bit, what that site should be fitting out. Okay, colostomy. Okay, you have the ascending colostomy. Remember, over here. So referring back to the beginning of the lecture when we were talking about the food going through the system, remember the food's going through the small intestines and it's liquid, okay? And once it hits the colon, as it goes through the colon, more and more water is going to be absorbed. So remember, the big role of the large intestine was to absorb water. So you can expect if it starts out in the ascending colon, it's going to be liquid because it's just came from the small intestine. So that's how you can expect the stool to be when it comes out of the ascending colon. Now transverse. As it travels up through the transverse, we have a transverse colostomy, more water is going to be absorbed. So it's not going to be totally formed. So it's going to be loose to partly formed, semi. Now, as it travels down through the descending into the sigmoid, more water is being absorbed. It's going to start looking similar to what the patient would expel normally through the rectum, through the anus. So you can expect it to look like a similar consistency to what it should look like normally. Now, keep this in mind. Remember this. The descending and sigmoid colon colostomies, the patient has a greater chance of developing bowel incontinence where they can learn to control their bowel movement. And why? Because look, normally if stool was going to go in the rectum, control your bowel movement. So the more distal the colostomy is down in the GI tract, the greater chance of incontinence that patient has. And they can learn to do this through irrigation, which is just an enema given through the stoma. And I'll be making a video on how to do that, so stay tuned for that. Now let's look at ileostomy. How do you expect the stool to be? Well, as we learn, the small intestine, it's rich in electrolytes, it's rich in water and digestive enzymes. So that stool is always going to be liquid. That's what we expect. And like I said, it's rich in all those enzymes, electrolytes, and water. Now, if you have a patient with an ileostomy, because of that substance in that being excreted through that, the patient has a higher risk of dehydration because it's going to go through the colon to be absorbed. So we're losing a lot of water, and electrolyte imbalance as well. And another thing to keep in mind, there is a major risk for skin breakdown around that stoma. Now, that's true for the colostomy as well. You don't want that nasty bacteria getting on that skin. It's going to cause issues, but especially with your ileostomy. If it gets on the stoma, it's fine because that's like the part of the GI tract just flipped out. And it's normal. It lives in those conditions normally. Our skin doesn't. So if you get the stool from the ileostomy onto the skin with those digestive enzymes and all that, it's going to get on the skin. It's going to cause major irritation. Notice how around the stoma the skin is very irritated. It's excoriated. And what you want to do is you always want to make sure the side around the stoma is dry and clean. The stool is not getting on there. And what will really help prevent this is a good pouching system with a really good skin barrier, which we'll discuss in the next video on how to apply that. So always checking, assessing as a nurse, always look around the skin and make sure it does not look like that. Okay, continuing with the post-op care that you'll be providing to the patient. One of the big things you need to know is about the pouching system. Here, we have an ostomy and it has a pouch over it. This pouch will collect the stool that will drain from it. So as the nurse, you need to be teaching the patient and you need to know how often you will empty this bag, when you will change the system out, and how to change it. So some highlights. Okay, you will empty the bag whenever it becomes about 1/3 to halfway full of stool. Every system's different, so always get familiar with what the patient has or what your employer has for the patient. This one's clamped. You would undo the clamp and empty it into the commode. Some of them are Velcro. Some of them you just take off and you have to get a whole new pouch because it snaps on there. The whole pouching system, you will change it about every 3 to 5 days. And around the system is some skin barrier that sets around the stoma to protect it from any drainage leaking onto the skin. And you will change that whole system out. And in the next video, I will show you how to do that. And when is the best time to change the pouch on the patient, the whole system? About in the morning, whenever the gut is the least active. So before breakfast, they just got up, they haven't ate, that's usually the best time to do it. And you'll want the patient to report if they feel any wetness around the stoma or if there's any burning. If that happens, you'll want to completely replace the system. You don't want that stool to get onto the skin because it can cause a lot of problems. Now, there's various types of pouching systems. The one I have here is called a one-piece system, and it has the skin barrier attached to the bag. The two-piece systems will have the skin barrier separate in the bag, and they'll just snap together. Now, there's some things you want to keep in mind whenever you're replacing the skin barrier. The skin barrier is going to prevent stool from coming into contact with the skin. So what you'll do is you'll have to measure the stoma with the measuring card. A lot of ostomy kits come with them, so you'll measure the stoma to whatever size it is, and you will cut the opening of the barrier to be about 1/8 inch larger than the stoma. So you don't want the hole to be so small it's constricting the stoma, and you don't want it to be too large that it allows stool to leak onto the skin underneath the skin barrier around it. So remember that 1/8 inch is how much you want to cut it larger than the stoma. Now let's look at medications and diet for your patients with ostomy. Okay, medication, specifically the ileostomy. You do not want to give them enteric-coated or sustained-release medications because where the ileostomy is at, that medication won't be able to work correctly. With enteric-coated, these medications don't dissolve until they release a specific part in the small intestine. So like aspirin, enteric-coated, you wouldn't want to do, or other drugs similar to that. And your sustained release are medications released over a certain period of time. So not a candidate for that. And as a side note, you will never want to crush these medications because crushing it is messing up how it's supposed to work. It's made to work whenever it gets to a certain part of the body or released slowly over an amount of time. Now, diet. Let's talk about that. Okay, whenever you have a patient who just had an ostomy placed, generally they will start out slow with their food for about the first 6 weeks, advance things is tolerated, get comfortable, get the gut readjusted to what's going on. They'll start out usually on a low fiber diet. They want to eat small meals throughout the day, not huge, large ones, a lot for the gut to handle. And they'll want to chew their food thoroughly because depending on where they have their ostomy at, the food's not getting broke down like it normally could. So they need to help with that process by breaking it down as much as they can in the mouth. And maintaining hydration, especially with your ileostomy. Remember that the drainage of the drain is rich in water that your colon can absorb electrolytes. So it's all going out. So they need to make sure that they drink Gatorade or some type of electrolyte solution to maintain that. And they will eventually be able to follow a regular diet, but they'll probably want to avoid foods that cause them problems before they had the ostomy placed because chances are they'll have problems with it again. And they'll want to use caution with the following food, like hard to digest foods, because this could block the stomach. So they either need to avoid these foods altogether or eat them in very, very small amounts. And foods like this include corn, peas, coleslaw, popcorn, nuts and seeds, raisins, skin of fruit, and raw mushrooms or pineapples. So just think common sense. What is not normally digested very well? What could get stuck in a little stomach hole that can cause a problem in a patient issue? So if you see a test question, kind of look for those options. Okay, also gas. A lot of times with ostomies, they produce odorous gas. So foods to eat to avoid from having this gas would be beans, onions, eggs, broccoli, cabbage, garlic, alcoholic beverages, fish, or any types of foods that have high fiber in them. And one thing you'll need to be educating your patient about, because gas is produced, the ostomy bag over time can inflate, and they'll need to know how to release that gas from that bag. And a lot of times, they are making ostomy bags that have a filter on them, which will help the gas to escape and it filters out so it doesn't have a smell. Or they can use pouch drops in the pouch for them to dispense. Okay, so that wraps up this NCLEX review on GI ostomy. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to take the free quiz and to subscribe to our channel for more videos.
Okay. So, okay. So now we are almost through with the presentation. Any questions? One of the questions asked, I am repeating again for why do we need to per rectal examination in a patient?
Why are people snagging this $89
ileostomy?
portable AC? I recently discovered how to refrigerate any room in my house in under 5 minutes
just a minute.
without using my home's cost.
Okay, so yes, you guys can hear me well? Okay. So I just wanted to rephrase that question. Why do you need to do a per rectal examination even if when the patient had an ileostomy? So this is because you need to do this because per rectal examination is part of your abdominal examination, so you need to perform that. Secondly, whenever you are the contents in the distal, they're still going to be contents in the distal bowel, the secretions and all that, and they form a hard bolus or any stuck particle in your distal colon. So you need to assess that as well. Then your primary disease what was the primary disease? You need to assess that. So there are multiple dimensions. So why do you need to do a per rectal examination even when you have made an ileostomy? You may have done an anastomosis, and so as you're seeing the patient as a whole, so it's part of that complete abdominal examination. So you need to do it. I think that answers suffices your answer for that. One thing which I did not mention completely in your stoma, because which is a very important part, is when to reverse that stoma. That is one a very important question that you should have an idea about. So, any comments from your side? When do you reverse a stoma? Before I give you my description. Okay, as we're about to close down, reversing stoma depends again on the why you made the trauma. If it was only a defunction stoma that wanted to give breast, 6 to 12 weeks time period is enough. For enteric perforations, is usually 6 weeks to 12 weeks. That is quite enough. But if it is a tuberculous perforation, you want the primary disease. Yes, good. Saifullah answered. 6 weeks is the ideal time for average reversal of these stomas. Temporary stomas, permanent stomas means they are going to be there forever. Temporary stomas usually 6 weeks. But again, if tuberculosis is the primary disease, then you want your patient to have complete at least 2 months or 8 to 12 weeks of complete anti-tuberculous therapy before you reverse it back, because tuberculosis has a very high relapse rate. So you do not want, and you patient's general condition, general health, nutritional value, all should be kept in consideration when you are reversing. And the most important thing when you're reversing is that you get a lupogram, a distal lupogram. If you recall that what are the causes of fistula formation, of one thing that you do not want is when you reverse that anastomosis leaks after your reversal. So the main important thing is to make sure, because proximal is working, that means the proximal gut is fine, and distal you do not know. So you have a distal lupogram to see the rest of the gut is still normal. There is no stricture, there is no residual disease, there is no any hindrance. The, as I said, the PR, at times there is a stuck down material in the distal colon that forms a hard mass that need to remove it before you reverse, because otherwise there's going to be distal obstruction, there will be pressure on your anastomosis, and there will be high chances of leakage of your reversal. So you want to avoid that. That is one important aspect when you are planning a reversal of a patient. That patient, the primary disease should be dealt out. Patients, the general condition of the patient is improved. The nutritional status of the patient is to improve. There is no there is no distal obstruction in the patient. Then you reverse the patient. Ideal, the time period is 6 to 12 weeks. For tuberculosis, it changes to 2 months to 3 months of anti-tuberculous therapy with a good response. A patient who is an MDR and you are giving ATT is not responding, you do not reverse that patient. You need to wait till the patient responds and then you give that. For patients who are for stomas that you have made for diversion or defunction for your malignancy in large gut, you make sure you do serial colonoscopies or lupogram through the loops copies to make sure there is no residual disease, at least 6 months to 1 year of CT scan, biopsy proven no malignancy, then you reverse the stoma so that patient can have a normal continuity of the bowel. So while reversing, you need to keep all these things in consideration before you reverse them. So now, any more questions you have before we sign off? Anything you would like to ask? I would be happy to answer. We have shared the links again. Our Tariq moderator will also again have that link sharing. So you can have those links. With that, any more questions from your side that you need to know? My next class with you guys would be on sutures and instruments and on next Thursday. Because it is going to be a little lengthy class, if you have a free, whatever books you have available, whatever description, if you know the description, you would probably learn and retain more of that class. So please, in between 1 week or 2 week, a day before, go through the instruments, the sutures, and objects, so that you know what you need to know as well. In my next class, next Wednesday would be Dr. Mujib's class on hematuria. It switched over